underestimate yourself. I think you're pretty childlike. Friends, you know, from the dizzying heights of academia, I'm going to bring you down to the real world, the playground of the temples and rulas and hostages of what is known as Bharata. I feel privileged and honored sharing this forum with professors the like of Dr. T.S. Sukmani, Dr. Sand, Dr. Richard Mann, and our moderator, Dr. Hoomer, who's a Jin, these people are all doctorates in philosophy, dealing with mental intellectuals. I am a pediatrician, as Gandhiji said, and I deal with very basic and body-level things. In our spiritual quest, we all know that we have to transcend the body, go to the mind, and go to the intellect, and then finally to the spiritual level in which Mahatma Gandhi and Ba dwelt. And I refer Ba especially today, because in this month of Navaratris, in the month of Ashwin Navaratris, we all worship Mother Goddess. And to me, Ba was just as important as Bapu was. So in my remarks will apply both to Bapu and Ba. My curiosity and adoration for this couple began when, in the 50s, I visited Porbandar and entered Bapu's home, specifically his study, which was a small room on the 3rd floor of the house. And on the walls of this room were beautiful paintings, which are now in a rather poor shape, faded, of the Dasavaras, which, for those who do not know, are the 10 incarnations of Lord Vishnu. And also, interestingly, in that room there was a window which looked over the house of Kasturba Gokuldas Mukherjee, who was Ba's consort for the rest of his life. They got married at age 13, and obviously everything that they did together influenced each other, and their lives were almost identical. And another interesting thing which appeared when I looked out of that window were a multitude of Vaishnava temples and Jain houses. And you can understand what a small child growing up in that environment must have felt. Just to add to my feelings about Ba, I'd like to quote also what Bapu had to say several times. He said, "She stood by me in all my political fights and never hesitated to take the plunge. She was uneducated to most people, but to my mind, she was a model of true education. She was a very devoted Vaishnava." And then he goes on and relates an incident and Ba was timid and very important that she had a bit bullied in order to bring her up. And of course, being Vaishnava as she was, the concepts that she had, she refused, and so did Ba. Anyway, Ba was concluded by saying that she personified the ideal of what Narsimha Mehta sang, and which you all heard in the voice of Shrisha this morning, this beginning of the book mentioned with them in the hymn. Further, Chachaji, Sri Madhumapalji, who I respect a lot due to his Gandhian way of life, simple living and high thinking and even higher actions and deeds of serving the community, asked me to speak. I hesitated, and for good reasons, but could not say no, because he gave me choice is you can talk on any aspect of Gandhi. The aspect of Gandhiji which has always interested, which I've enjoyed, and which has interested me was his Vaishnava lifestyle. And mark my word, Vaishnava lifestyle. Vaishnava, I feel, it's part of Sanatana Dharma, but all of Sanatana Dharma is not Vaishnava. Gandhiji at one point was asked point blank, says, what were your inspirations? Specifically, where did the ideas of equality, independence, and non-violence come from? And from the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi, printed by the Navjeevan Trust Press, Mahatma Gandhi's reply was, The inspiration for knowledge is from the great religions of India, specifically Hinduism, Buddhism, and Vaishnavism, that were prevalent in the part of India where he grew up. He continues and names many of these of great souls from India, like Bhakti movement saints, going on to Dadabhai Naroji, Rabindranath Tagore, Bal Gadadhar Tilak, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, and yet many foreign origin, and then he quotes, and then he refers to Thoreau, Christ, Tolstoy, and Lady Annie Besant. I have nothing, and he continues, and he said, I have nothing new to teach to the world. Truth and non-violence are as old as the hills. All I have done is to try experiment in both on as vast a scale as possible. Now, all religions in the world, every thinker in the world talks about ahimsa. How does this ahimsa differ from a Vaishnava ahimsa? People say you should not be cruel to, you should not hurt so-and-so. There's this feeling of Dvait, this feeling of me, you, I am superior, I can hurt you, do this. But to the Vaishnava, there is no other. There's nobody else. And the story that my father gave to me at one time was that we were eating, and supposing you bite your tongue while you're eating, accidentally. What do? Do you just go out and get your tooth pulled out and throw it away? Because it is the teeth that have hurt your tongue. No, you don't. Why? And the reason is because you consider the tongue and the teeth both part of you. You are the tongue, you are the tooth. So what's the point? Who are you going to hurt? Who are you going to inflict pain on? So that is a little sort of nuance in the understanding of Mahatma. Gandhiji's love for Vaishnava poets, especially the Bhakti-Kal poets, of which my favorite poet is Goswami Tulsidas and his Ramcharitmanas, along with his other books, but Ramcharitmanas in particular. Interestingly, this is how I got interested in him. But it's unfortunate, and it is interesting at the same time, that no aspect of words are composed to me in recent times than the last words beyond. And it's on that point. People recite about anything, everything, any form, suddenly without the last words are best, and maybe one fault. So that's not point. It's unfortunate that these people put in chance somebody said Gandhiji or even said here on. It is these two terms that I would like to focus on today. Before doing so, let us look at these terms and try and understand what they stand for. I would like to share with you very briefly a simple layman's approach and understanding of the Rama of the Itihas, that is, history, the Vishnu of the Puranas, and the basic concept which gave birth to these concepts, these names, these terms, the Ishavasya Upanishad. All these three terms are used very, very frequently by the Vaishnava saints, sages, and all the Mahatmas and Gurus, and Bapu and Ba were no exception to this. The Vishnu Sahasranamam, which is a compendium of 1,000 names of the Lord, refers to the name there is Vishnu. And, the second word here, the Vishnu actually appears 3 times there. The second word, the 258th word, and the 657th word. And Ram appears once. And that is the 394th in the Vishnu Sahasranam. Now, I said the 3 terms. Vishnu comes from the Sanskrit root vis, which means to enter, to permeate. That which enters the world of things and beings, pervades it, is Vishnu. He is not limited by space, which is Desh, time, which is Kal, and substance, which is Vastu. Swami Vivekananda said that as long as the first verse of the Ishavasya Upanishad stays, the concepts of Sanatana Dharma will prevail. And what is the first verse of the Ishavasya Upanishad says is Ishavasya Midam Sarvam. He permeates everything. He is in everything and every place. Now, Rama says, Ramante Asmin iti Ramaha. One in whom people discover their fulfillment is Rama. Mind you, Valmiki is the author of the original Ramayana, and people think that that's where the name Ram came from. But Ram, the name, has existed. It's a word. It's always been there. And it's a concept that it represents. It's not just a name. And in this respect, let us see what Mahatma Gandhi himself had to say. And I'll quote you. These are all quotes from Mahatma Gandhi. He says, Rama, Allah, and God are to me convertible terms. This is from the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi. Another quote. He says, I believe in Advaita. I believe in the essential unity of man, and for that matter, all that lives. Tendulkar, who wrote a book entitled Mahatma, published by the Publication Division of the Government of India, says, for me, Ram and Rahim are the same deity. Then R.K. Prabhu, another author of on Gandhi, in his book Truth is God, writes, he says, Ram was not only, very interesting, he says, Ram was not only on the lips of Hanuman, he was enthroned in his heart. He gave Hanuman exhaustless strength. What does that mean? He says, he emphasizes that not just the Naam and Rupa, which one can perceive from the eyes, body, mind, intellect, but he was in his heart. What I'm talking about is that it is the heart, it is the guna. It is not the Naam and Rupa, but it is the guna that we are talking about, and that is what Gandhi was impressed by. To an ordinary, grammatical Hindu, of course, it says, Ram Rameti Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranam Tattulyam Ramanam Varanane. That Ram is equivalent to 1,000 other names. And this, of course, is in the mythological term is an instruction given to Parvati by Lord Shiva. Now I come to the controversy of Bapu's last words. Recently, His Holiness the Bishop of Rome said, mockery of the sacred is being presented these days in the garb of freedom of expression. Bapu's sacred life and message has also been desecrated and subjected to this mockery. What is unfortunate is that those who indulge in this do so with absolute ignorance of both the phrase Hey Ram and Ramarajya. Never mind reading the Manas, where the description of Ramarajya appears. These people may have never even put their eye on the book Ramayana, never mind opening it. When Gandhi used the word Hey Ram after the assassin's bullet hit him, he was like millions and millions of Vaishnavas who repeat these words day in and day out, especially during the course of the day, and especially if they are in pain, if they're in agony, if they are suffering. It's very natural to say, Hey Ram. And I can vouch for most people, that is, Gandhiji was being himself. He just, a bullet hit him, he says, Hey Ram. It's very interesting that a professor from UCLA, probably Dr. Rukmini knows him, Vinay Lal, he's put it in very nicely. He says, politically speaking, he managed to confound, as he does so down to the present day, both the Hindu militants who falsely declared him a traitor to his faith and so showed only their own miserable conceptions of Hinduism, as well as the secularists, whose conception of both religion and politics is much too narrow to accommodate the creative ecumenism of the true dissenters like Gandhi. Bapu said, "My life is my message." Anyone who takes time to study his life will experience the truth, and he does not need anybody to pass judgment on him. Gita was another source which is attributed to Gandhi's favorites. It's interesting, Gandhiji was first introduced to Gita not in Hindi, not in Sanskrit, not in Gujarati, but in English, and that too in England. And the translation that he had followed was Sir Edwin Arnold's the song Celestial. And there it says, talking about not knowing what Ram Rajya is, he says there's nothing like knowledge that removes sin. That's his saying. And he says, and who gets this knowledge? It says, Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. It's only the one who has the faith and devotion and wanting to learn will get this information. Otherwise they won't. And what happens after he gets this information? He says, Shantim achirena adhigacchati. You get true peace achirena, without any delay. Right away you get it. So, ladies and gentlemen, this poet that I was talking to you about, Goswami Tulsidas Ji, I just want to talk about and just mention the site, the original location of this concept of Ram Rajya, which occurs in Tulsidas Ji's Ramcharitmanas. For those who are not familiar with that Mahakavya, I'd like to tell you one thing, that Tulsidas Ji has written it as a narration where three sets of people simultaneously are reciting the Ramayana. It is Shiva telling the story to Parvati, Kagbhushan telling the story, narrating the story to Garud, and Agastya Muni relating it to Bharadwaj. And the reference that comes in Ram Rajya is constantly of Kagbhushanji, conveying the message to Garud. And Garud in mythology is considered as the king of the birds, and whereas Kagbhushan is a crow, the lowliest of the low birds, often despised. There is meaning. There is purpose in this. I mean, Tulsidas Ji says that even the lowliest may possess information by which you can benefit, and the king of the birds goes and gets this information from him. And the verses goes, and he says, Ram Raj Baithe Trailoka Har Fir Harshit Bhaye Sab Shoka Bayar Nakar Kahusan Ko Ram Pratap Vishamta Koi. With Ram at the throne, all the three worlds rejoiced. All enmities and inner conflicts disappeared. People followed their designated roles according to the Vedantic style, set by the Vedantic way. And what is the Vedantic way? And that is what's going to give you the answer. And what is the concept that they're talking about? And what is the concept that really influenced Mahatma Gandhi? Is things starting from the Vedic point. It says, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi. You are it. You are in the image of the Lord. Ishavasya Upanishad saying, Ishavasya Midam Sarvam. This is the Vedic law. This is the Vedantic way of doing things. And the names Vishnu and Ram, as we already talked about. So how could then, when this happens, then the verses go on, and there is, for those of you who are interested in it, I can tell you it's in Uttarakhand from Doha 21 to Doha 23, and you can go. But when it comes to poetry, and when it comes to Hindi poetry, you'll have to bear with me, I just get carried away. So I've just briefly translated it for the benefit of those who do not follow. He says, during the reign of Rama, none suffered from bodily ailments, natural calamities, or divine wrath. People lived with love and caring for each other. Every member of the society followed the path of righteousness. The four cornerstones of dharma, satya, shauch, daya, and tat, which is truth, purity, compassion, and austerities, were followed by all. Nobody sinned, even in dreams. All had beautiful, healthy bodies, and none died prematurely. No one was faced with poverty, no one suffered, nor did anyone exist in misery. All were righteous. Forward to function according to their abilities and time and place in life. Ram ruled the entire earth, oceans and mountains included. The poet here clarifies himself and states that this was no big feat for him, because he's talking of Ram as the universal person. When he says a person who resides in every and anything that you witness or experience. Ram, he says, after knowing this, Tulsidas says, I would be embarrassed even to say that he ruled the whole earth, because he is the earth, he is the universe. And he goes on further, beautiful poetry. He says, even Sharda, the goddess of learning, and Shesha, who's attributed with 1,000 mouths, would not have the eloquence to describe Ramarajya. Every individual was generous and involved in social welfare. People paid due reverence to the wise and learned, like the professors. And the women looked after their well-being, and both in thought, word, and deed. Dand, a verse goes, English translation loses all the meaning, but the Hindi word, for those of you, he says, when Ram was on the throne, Dand has two meanings. Dand is a stick, and Dand is punishment. So he says, a bamboo and punishment were found only in the hands of monks and buskers who used it for their individual needs. Since there was no crime, there was obviously no need for the dand, which meant punishment. The term bhed, or discrimination, was heard only amongst musicians to differentiate between their swar and tal and that. It was not used to create differences between people. The word jeet, or conquer, he says, was used only in reference to conquering desires and your ego. There were no enemies to conquer. The trees in the forest were healthy with fruits and abundant leaves, and amidst the forest lived the ferocious tiger and the elephant together. Numerous herds of animals and flocks of birds rejoice and live together in harmony. The cool, fragrant wind blows softly through the land. Numerous bees and butterflies freely move through the pollen in the fragrant meadows. The plants are full of life-giving saps. Cows provided desired quantities of milk. The earth was full of lush green fields. Treta, the time of Ram, resembled Satyu, the real, ideal, righteous world. Acknowledging the fact that the universal soul, that Ram, is at the helm of affairs, the mines, the quarries, and the surfaced their wealth for people to use. All the rivers were full of pure, pristine, cool waters. The oceans retained their limits and brought their wealth to the shores. The ponds and lakes were blossoming and blooming with lotuses. There was nothing but contentment in all directions. The moon and the sun, considered as the source of heat, cold, and energy, created ideal climate and provided rain upon request. This was Goswamiji's vision and shared by Mahatma Gandhi for Ram Rajya. Please note how it covers the three major branches of any modern government: the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. And interestingly enough, in Ram Rajya, the righteous laws coupled with benevolent caring almost removed the need of the judiciary. I'm sure with leaders and I'm sure any leader with a poet's heart and sentiments would agree that Ram Raj was worth striving for, as Mahatma Gandhi did. Thank you.